There is a sentence avoidant people say that sounds small when you first hear it. Almost casual, almost harmless. But if you know what to listen for, it lands like a crack in the wall. It is not, "I love you." It is not some grand confession. Usually, it sounds more like this: "I don't know why I'm telling you this." And that is the moment everything changes. Because avoidant people do not open accidentally. They do not drift into vulnerability the way some people drift into conversation. They protect themselves before they even know they're doing it. They edit their feelings before those feelings reach their mouth. They feel closeness rising in the body and mistake it for danger. So when an avoidant says, "I don't know why I'm telling you this," or "I never talk about this with anyone," or "This is hard for me to say," what they are really revealing is not just information. They are revealing access. And access is attachment. That is what makes this so confusing when you're on the receiving end. Because the same person who lets you into a hidden room of their inner world can pull away the next day. They can go quiet after being tender. They can disappear after sharing something raw. They can look at you with the softness of someone falling, and then act like they need air, space, distance, silence. So you start doubting yourself. You wonder if you imagined the connection. You replay the words, the tone, the pause before they said it, the way their guard dropped for half a second, and you saw someone almost childlike beneath the control, beneath the calm, beneath the detachment they wear like armor. You think, if that was real, why are they backing away now? Because for avoidant people, intimacy does not only feel good, it also feels expensive. That is the brutal truth most people do not want to hear. If you are waiting for an avoidant to love the way anxious people love, to chase the second they feel something, to become clearer the moment their emotions deepen, you will misread the whole story. The deeper they feel, the more likely they are to become conflicted. Not because the bond is weak, because the bond is strong enough to wake up everything they work all day to keep asleep. This is where people lose themselves. They think closeness should create more closeness. They think emotional honesty should create emotional consistency. They think, I gave them safety, patience, care, understanding, so why am I being met with distance? Because your care may have reached the exact place they spend their life defending. And when that happens, avoidants often do not lean in first. They regulate by pulling back. You have to understand what is happening inside them, not just what it looks like from the outside. Avoidant attachment is not coldness in the simple sense, it is often a nervous system strategy. Long before they had words for it, closeness became linked with overwhelm. Need felt risky. Dependence felt unsafe. Vulnerability felt like a door that, once opened, could not be closed without pain. So the body learned to shut down before the heart got too exposed. This is why the mind of an avoidant can be deeply split. One part wants connection. One part wants relief from connection. One part feels drawn to you. Another part starts scanning for ways to reduce the intensity. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, can interpret emotional exposure like a threat. Cortisol rises. The nervous system goes into protection mode. They feel crowded, even when nobody is trapping them. They feel pressure, even when all you offered was warmth. And because the body always tries to make sense of its own reactions, the mind starts creating stories. Maybe this is moving too fast. Maybe I need space. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe something is off. Maybe I'm losing myself. But what they often do not realize in the moment is this: they are not only reacting to you, They are reacting to the internal flood your closeness created. That is why one deeply intimate conversation can be followed by distance. The dopamine of connection rises. The body feels alive, seen, almost relieved. Then comes the crash. Then comes the vulnerability hangover. Then comes the need to regain control. So they go quiet, become vague, change the subject, focus on work, sleep more, text less, act strangely formal, or disappear into an emotional fog they themselves do not fully understand. And if you do not understand this pattern, you will do the one thing that makes it worse. You will chase the retreat. You will try to close the gap with more words, more reassurance, more emotional force, more checking, more fixing, more reaching. You will think love needs to be proven louder. But in the avoidant nervous system, intensity can feel like invasion, even when it comes from devotion. So the very thing you do to bring them closer can confirm their fear that closeness costs too much. Now listen carefully, because this is the part that changes everything. When an avoidant says, "I don't know why I'm telling you this," they are not saying nothing. They are saying, "You got past my defenses." They are saying, "My body trusted you before my mind could stop it." They are saying, "You reached a place I do not let people touch." And that is why they may become even more complicated after that moment, not less. Because once an avoidant bonds, they do not simply feel affection. They feel exposure. They start noticing how much your presence affects them, how your tone changes their mood, how your absence changes the room, how one delayed text can bother them more than they want to admit, how they think of something funny and almost send it to you before catching themselves, how they hear a song and feel irritated that it reminds them of you, how they say they want space and then keep checking if you reached out, how they tell themselves it is not that deep, while secretly remembering details about you with disturbing precision. That is bonded behavior. Not always romantic language, not always consistency, but impact. You begin to matter in their inner world. And once you matter, they fight it. That is the contradiction. People assume the avoidant does not care because they withdraw. But often, the withdrawal is happening because they care enough to feel dysregulated. If they truly felt nothing, there would be no inner battle, no static, no need to shut down, no need to create distance. Indifference is actually far quieter than avoidance. Indifference does not overthink. Indifference does not go numb after intimacy. Indifference does not feel the need to reclaim control. Avoidance does. That does not mean every avoidant is secretly in love. It does not mean you should romanticize crumbs. It does not mean every mixed signal is hidden devotion. But when someone who is highly defended suddenly shows you a wound, a memory, a fear, a truth they never hand to other people, something real has happened. Something bonded. Maybe not safely. Maybe not maturely. Maybe not in a way that can hold a relationship yet. But real. And now we need to talk about the one concept that changes your power in this dynamic. Silence. Not performative silence. Not punishment. Not cold games. Not disappearing to manipulate them. I mean clean silence. The kind that comes from self-respect. The kind that says, I will not chase someone just because they are frightened by what they feel. This is where most people break. Because when the avoidant withdraws after intimacy, your own nervous system gets activated. You want certainty. You want to restore the closeness. You want to make them explain what changed. You want to save the connection before it slips through your hands. But if you panic at the exact point they become overwhelmed, you unintentionally step into the role their defenses were already expecting. The role of the person who will demand, press, pursue, consume. And then their story about closeness gets reinforced. So silence becomes the test. Can you remain emotionally rooted without demanding immediate relief from them? Can you let the moment breathe? Can you stop translating their overwhelm into your worth? Because this is what they secretly notice, more than your speeches, more than your heartbreak paragraphs, more than your attempts to decode every mixed signal. They notice when you do not collapse. They notice when you do not beg. They notice when your energy becomes calm, contained, unhooked. They notice when your presence feels safe, but your boundaries feel real. That is the beginning of the power shift. Imagine what happens in their mind when they pull away expecting pursuit, and instead they meet space. Not icy distance, not revenge, just dignity. Suddenly, the pressure they were running from is gone. The nervous system has room to settle. The cortisol drops. And in that quiet, something else starts getting louder. Their own attachment. Now they can feel your absence without the distraction of managing your reaction. Now there is no emotional smoke filling the room. Now there is just them, their thoughts, your silence, and the unnerving realization that you are not orbiting them in panic. That is when they start checking. Did I push too far? Why do I miss them? Why am I thinking about them now? Why does their calm bother me more than their anger would have? Why do I want to reach out if I was the one who needed space? Because silence does something arguments cannot do. It removes interference. It lets them feel the bond. And when an avoidant feels the bond without pressure, it can hit hard. They start revisiting your last conversations, rereading your messages, hearing your voice in their head, remembering the specific way you looked at them when they revealed something vulnerable. They remember that you did not laugh, you did not weaponize it, you did not pry the door open wider than they were ready for. You simply saw them. And now, in your absence, that memory becomes emotionally louder than they expected. This is why avoidants often come back in subtle ways first. A small message, a casual check-in, a meme, a question that pretends not to be longing, a strangely warm response at an odd hour. They test contact before they admit need. They circle before they land. They want to know if you are still there, but they also want to know whether being close to you will cost them their sense of control. And this is the moment you must be careful. Because once they lean back in, your old fear may wake up and make you overcorrect. You may pour too much, too fast. You may try to lock in the connection, extract guarantees, force clarity before the nervous system underneath the pattern has truly changed. But if you rush to consume the reassurance, you risk reactivating the same cycle. Do not break the pattern by repeating it in a softer voice. If they return, let their actions breathe long enough to become a pattern. Let consistency reveal itself. Let intimacy build without abandoning yourself. Let them move toward you without doing all the work for them. Because someone being bonded to you is not the same as someone being ready for you. That distinction can save your life. A person can miss you, crave you, think about you constantly, feel deeply attached to you, and still not know how to hold love without sabotaging it. Do not confuse emotional intensity with relational capacity. They are not the same thing. One feels powerful, The other is powerful. And this is where your transformation begins. Because the real lesson was never just how to understand the avoidant. It was how to stop disappearing inside their confusion. Maybe this whole time you thought your job was to decode them perfectly enough to be chosen. To say the right thing, wait the right amount, be soft enough, patient enough, healing enough, unforgettable enough, that they would finally relax into loving you openly. But that mindset makes your worth dependent on someone else's regulation. It turns your heart into a waiting room. No more. You do not need to become less emotional to be loved by an avoidant. You do not need to become harder to deserve clarity. You do not need to translate your pain into endless understanding while abandoning your own needs in the process. Yes, it matters to understand the psychology. Yes, it matters to see that their withdrawal is often overwhelm, not apathy. Yes, it matters to know that if they say, "I don't know why I'm telling you this," they have likely already formed a bond they cannot casually undo. But the deepest truth is this: their bond to you is not your victory. Your self-possession is. Because the moment you stop measuring your value by how clearly a defended person can express love, you become dangerous in the most beautiful way. You stop reaching from hunger. You stop begging for emotional proof. You stop mistaking access to someone's wounds for a promise of partnership. You become discerning, steady, clean. You can recognize connection without being consumed by it. And that changes the entire dynamic. Now, if they come toward you, they come toward someone who is no longer pleading to be chosen. They come toward someone whose warmth is real, but whose center is not for sale. Someone who understands the nervous system without excusing repeated harm. Someone who can witness fear without kneeling before it. Someone who knows that love is not just being deeply felt, it is being safely held. So if an avoidant says, "I never tell anyone this," believe the weight of that moment. Do not dismiss it. Do not trivialize it. Something opened. Something bonded. Something in them trusted you enough to risk exposure. But then, do something even more powerful. Do not lose yourself in what it means. Let them feel what it means too. Let silence do its sacred work. Let distance reveal reality. Let their behavior answer what their words could not. And while they are sorting through their fear, their craving, their confusion, their growing awareness that your absence touches them more deeply than they expected, you stay with yourself. You stay with your breath, your standards, your peace, your life, your power. Because the final shift was never about getting inside their mind. It was about finally coming home to your own. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. Whether they return or not, whether they chase or not, whether they ever find the courage to meet the bond consciously or spend years running circles around it, you are no longer trapped in emotional captivity. You are no longer living off signals, pauses, and maybe. You are no longer asking someone else's fear to define your future. You become the person whose presence is felt deeply, but whose value does not depend on being pursued. You become the silence they cannot forget. You become the mirror that showed them what real safety felt like. And most importantly, you become someone who no longer needs another person's confusion to end before your life can begin. That is power. Not coldness, not detachment, not revenge. Power. The kind that does not scream, the kind that does not chase, the kind that knows exactly what it is. And once you know that, everything changes.